What is up, guys? Hope everybody is having a great day. I wanted to start to do this kind of for a couple reasons. I call this Porch Talk. We got this screen and porch built in October, and I really don't come out here often, but lately I've been coming out here over the last 6 months and really just kind of reflecting on life, kind of analyzing where I am in life as far as the goals I want to hit, as far as spiritually, financially, business wise, and really as a man of God. And so, today, what I wanted to start to do is just kind of talk about what's been on my mind, and hopefully it can kind of help somebody in some way, shape, or form. And so today I really wanted to talk about something that I feel like God has been talking about in my life over and over again, and it's the words process. And so right now I feel like I'm at a place in life where it's funny. Sometimes in life, what happens is we pray to God to give us a bunch of business, and we pray for Him to give us all these blessings. But I think sometimes us as humans, we don't necessarily prepare for them. And so, what I've really been focused on this last year is really just preparing my business for where I see it going in the next 12 to 18 months. And so I've really spent a lot of time over this past year. As you can hear, the birds are very proactive. But I've spent a lot of time over this past year really creating processes. And there's a couple of reasons why I think processes are so important. The first one is the fact that when you have processes in place, and I've said this before, you can really focus on the culture of whatever you're building. And what I mean by that is what I've noticed in my business career, and I've said it before, the hardest person to really like figure out and to really get on board is the person who has a great personality, but really is missing the mark as far as getting things done. And so I've seen that in my own company to where, like in the past, I would have guys who are really cool guys, but when it came time for the service I needed from them, whether it was videography, graphic design, helping you with Facebook advertising, web design, whatever it is, they were so worried about the personable relationship that we had that they would drop the ball as far as getting the task done that we needed to get done. And so, what I started to learn is that if I put a process in place, I can focus on really knowing that person. And on the flip side, if they don't follow the process, then I can easily replace them. Because I think what happens sometimes as business owners is we look at a situation and we look at, like, it's hard. I know for me, it's hard for me to sometimes look at a situation and automatically say, well, this person is dropping the ball without being clouded to the fact that I may be friends with that person, that that person may have a cool personality, that that person is very likable and a nice person. But what I've learned is that a person who's in that place, it's going to be hard to really make sure that like your company is growing at the pace you want it to if you have a lot of people like that, because yeah, hanging out with them may be fun and having team meetings may be fun, but if they're not doing what they need to do, it's going to hinder your company growth. And I always tell people, if you feel like God's called you to be in business, then you got to make sure that you put those processes in place to scale and that you have the right people in the right seats. And so that's one reason why I think processes are so important. And so, what I've really been doing this year is I've been really analyzing the people who I work with. I have about 5 to 8 creatives I work with who help me get content, and then I have 6 full-time overseas virtual people who work with me as well. And so, what I've kind of thought about is, okay, I can place them as a one, a two, or a three in my organization. A one is somebody who can think of an idea, who can map out the steps to do it, and who can do the simple task. A two is somebody who can just map out the steps after they're given the idea and then also do the simple task. And then the three is just somebody who can do the simple task. And what I've learned is a lot of times from the organizations I've studied over this last year and trying to build processes in my own organization is that a lot of times people put threes in the place in the seats of twos and ones, and that's why they oftentimes don't get work done. And so, what I've learned when it comes to processes and building leverage, that's the other word I often use, is that in the beginning, you really just have to find a lot of threes who can do simple tasks, right? And you do that by creating processes for them. That way, when it comes time for you to delegate, they just repeat the same process over and over and over again. I think people don't realize that as an entrepreneur, everything's up here, but in order to become the business person that you want to become, you have to get everything from out of your head into a process so that people can follow it over and over again. And so that's one thing I've learned in this process of like building processes is people who can do simple tasks, but they have to be given processes in order to do that. And the great thing about this is that as you get those processes in place for the threes, you can start to hire twos to really oversee the threes in those processes. And I think a lot of times what happens is when people want to grow, they want to hire ones or they want to hire twos. But the problem is with that is you're not using those people's value the right way if you hire them to do simple tasks. I think when it comes to threes in an organization, threes are more price based and more of a commodity in the sense of when you pay a lot for people, oftentimes you're paying a lot for their mind and their ability to innovate and to create plans. But when you're paying somebody for simple tasks, you can really compete on price because if they have a process in place, they're just copying the same thing. So whether you pay somebody, let's say $10 an hour or $20 an hour, it's the same process. So now it's just a matter of what type of level of understanding do you want the person to have. And so that's what I've noticed in my processes. And then another thing I've noticed is if you feel like you have to say something more than three times, it's important to create a process. I realize that over this year, there will be things that like I want to delegate out, but then all of a sudden I end up doing. And then that same task will come up and I want to delegate out again, but instead of delegating out, I end up doing it. And I started analyzing my own actions. And when I started doing that, I started saying to myself, okay, I need to create a process for this situation. That way, when it comes time to like delegate it out, I don't have to worry about explaining the process to anybody. I can just send them the process, whether it be on videos, documents, whatever, and then they can kind of like take the reins on that. And so that's another thing I would tell you with processes. But then the ultimate thing I would tell you with processes is I believe in order for the executive to be born, the hustler has to die. And I think that a lot of times as entrepreneurs, we feel like we have to do everything and we feel like nobody can do something as well as we can do it. I heard a quote once from Dwight Eisenhower, and he says, the great leaders are those who hire people around them that are smarter than them. And then on top of that, I had a story one time where I was talking to a client and I asked him about like I told him, "Hey, I'm having trouble delegating because I don't think anybody can do what I can do." And he was just honest with me. He was like, "Bro, look, I really appreciate all the stuff you do for my company, but the fact of the matter is there's a lot of people who can do what you can do, but people buy the brand of your company, not necessarily just what you can do." And so when I heard that, it made me understand that like brand is important, but in order for your brand to be important, you have to have processes in place in order for other people to handle those tasks. And so, if there's anything I can leave with you today, I know this is a different type of video, but if there's anything I can leave for you today is if you feel like God's called you to build whatever business or be in whatever role you're in currently, it's your job to create leverage and processes. That way you can impact more people than you ever thought of. Have a great day and God bless.